It makes me so happy to see compact pickup trucks making a comeback. Now I know Hyundai isn't calling this a truck, but a sport adventure vehicle, but come on, look at this thing. It looks like a truck to me. Today, I'm excited to get up close and personal with the 2022 Hyundai Santa Cruz. So this is a Tucson under the skin, and with the rear cargo area turned into a bed. There's some familial styling in the nose and on the sides, but all of it works together to help the Santa Cruz really stand out on the road. Here we see Hyundai's parametric jewel design for the front lighting, as it blends into the aggressive grille space when not lit up. There's a lower skid plate piece under the nose, but that's pretty much just cosmetic. The SE, SEL, and SEL Premium all come standard with 18-inch wheels, while the top spec Limited gets 20s. As for this slick, integrated tonneau cover, it is optional on the SEL trim, and then it's standard on the two higher trims above that. And that's the same deal with the 115-volt power outlets in the sidewell. Inside, the Santa Cruz feels maybe a bit more premium than the other vehicles in this space. Especially on this Limited model, we get a nice dash layout. In the center is this 10.3-inch touchscreen, while lower trims get an 8-inch touchscreen. A Hyundai issue we find in all their models is that if you get the nice larger screen, you have to use wired phone mirroring, whereas it's wireless on the smaller screen. Regardless, the seats are great and there's good visibility, and there's even good room in the back. Now, with respect to power, you have two choices, but really it should be one choice and you should avoid the other one. That's because the base engine option is a 2.5-liter four-cylinder making 191 horsepower and 181 pound-feet of torque. It pairs with an 8-speed automatic and can't hold a candle to the engine in this truck here, which adds a turbocharger and brings power to 281 horsepower and 311 pound-feet of torque. It also ditches the conventional automatic for a dual-clutch 8-speed gearbox. Both versions can be had with front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, but if you want to get the most truck-like specs out of this thing, you need the 2.5T with all-wheel drive, and then you can tow up to 5,000 pounds. The payload capacity is 1,609 pounds. The one with the most payload capacity is the base SE, which can do 1,753 pounds. So I said you're going to want the 2.5-liter turbo, not the naturally aspirated engine, and part of that is due to all the torque, but it's also how that torque arrives. Here in this version, it starts at 1,700 RPM peak torque and goes all the way up through about 5,000 RPM, whereas on the non-turbo, peak torque doesn't arrive until 4,000 RPM, and that's a huge difference in how the vehicle feels on a day-in, day-out basis. But behind the wheel, it does drive nice. I like that the steering isn't artificially heavy because it's supposed to be a pseudo truck. It's nice and light, which makes for just more enjoyable everyday driving in a vehicle like this. And then when it comes time to slow down, you've got good sized brakes for something like this too. The rotors are 12.8 inches, which a few years ago were like really big brakes. Well, maybe like 10 years ago. Now everybody's doing big brakes, but for a vehicle like this, 12.8-inch rotors are a great size. Out back, the bed is actually more useful than you might expect too. There's tons of pockets and cubbies and places to put things, and there's channels to lock stuff down and D-rings and all kinds of good stuff to secure whatever load you're putting back there. And there is room for stuff with the tailgate down. There definitely is. Just around town, this feels nice. And again, this is a top spec one, so it's going to be the nicer one. And the fit and finish on all of them though is really great, especially for this segment. Now, speaking again about the back side of this truck, the rear suspension is a multi-link setup, which is pretty cool, but even cooler is that the dampers are self-leveling based on what you're putting back there. So the multi-link is really good at creating a really nice ride, a comfortable ride. You know, it's not a solid axle setup. And then to self-level, if you're throwing bags of whatever back there or putting a dirt bike back there, it levels out and keeps everything cool. And then on top of it all, it just drives really well based on its form factor, its size, its footprint. It's a truck that's easy to park, it fits in your garage. It does all these things pretty effortlessly because it's a compact pickup. And that works really well for a lot of people. What might not work as well is the fact that the fuel economy isn't going to be the best. That engine is surprisingly thirsty, and it's not uncommon to be under what the EPA estimate is for this truck, whereas on the flip side with something like the Maverick, which comes standard with a hybrid, it's very easy to get great fuel economy in that by comparison. I do like the 311 pound-feet of torque though. The starting price of a Santa Cruz sits nicely at $25,215, but we told you that you need to jump to the turbo motor, and that instantly adds $10,000 to your bottom line. This one here, as tested, is over $41,000, which is an absolute ton of money, especially when a very nicely equipped Maverick can be had on the much better side of $30,000. Still, this feels nicer inside than a Maverick, and if someone is looking for a good compact truck with great torque and a nicer interior, the Santa Cruz is a wonderful option. I prefer the styling of the Maverick on the outside, but 311 pound-feet of torque is tons of fun to play with. But really, the honest answer here is that I'm just excited that we have true competition in a market segment that was all but ready to disappear.